You have been told your whole life to eat more vegetables. And that advice is right. Mostly. But here is what that advice leaves out. And this is the part that matters if you are over 60. Not every vegetable is equally safe for every aging body. And 3 specific vegetables, eaten the wrong way, by the wrong person, or in the wrong amount, can do real biological harm that accumulates quietly over months and years. I am going to show you exactly which 3 those are. And then, because this is not a video about fear, it is a video about information, I'm going to show you the 3 vegetables that seniors should be eating far more of. The ones with the most evidence behind them. The ones that genuinely support vascular flexibility, cognitive resilience, and anti-inflammatory protection at every stage of aging. Stay with me all the way through, because the last vegetable in the must-eat list, number 6, is the one most seniors are not eating nearly enough of. And the research on what it does for your brain health is remarkable. Welcome back. I am Dr. Chan. This channel is built on one principle: evidence-based senior nutrition, delivered clearly and honestly, so you can make the best decisions for your own health and independence. If this is your first time here, subscribe. I put out a new video every week, and everyone is built around real research, not trends, not headlines, not things that sound good but have no science behind them. Now, let us talk about vegetables. Before we get into the list, I need to give you 2 minutes of honest context, because the question is not just which vegetables are good or bad. The real question is, good or bad for whom, and in what condition? Here is what changes in your body after 60 that makes this conversation different from advice you would give a 35-year-old. First, kidney function. According to the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, kidney function naturally declines with age. Most people lose roughly 1% of kidney filtration capacity every year after age 40. By the time you are 70, many people are operating at 60 to 70% of their peak kidney function. That is not disease. That is normal aging. But it means the kidneys are less efficient at filtering compounds like oxalates, potassium, and phosphorus out of the bloodstream. Second, medication interactions. More than 40% of Americans over 65 take 5 or more prescription medications daily. Vegetables are not neutral bystanders in that equation. Certain vegetables interact directly with blood thinners like warfarin, with blood pressure medications, and with medications that affect potassium levels. The interaction is real, it is documented, and most people are never told about it. Third, immune vulnerability. The CDC has long established that adults over 65 have a significantly elevated risk from foodborne bacteria, including bacteria that certain raw vegetables are known to harbor. An infection that a 30-year-old shakes off in 24 hours can become a hospitalizing event for someone in their 70s. This is not about making you afraid of vegetables. It is about making you smarter about which ones, how much, how prepared, and, critically, in the context of your own health situation. With that framework in place, let us go through the 3 vegetables seniors should be cautious about. Let me start with the one that surprises people the most, because sprouts have a health halo. They look clean. They look fresh. They appear in every health magazine and salad bar in America. And for younger adults with robust immune systems, they can be fine. But for seniors over 60, the FDA, the CDC, and the WHO have all issued consistent guidance. Raw sprouts, alfalfa, bean, clover, mung bean, radish, pose an elevated and specific risk that most people in this age group are simply not aware of. Here is the biology. Sprouts grow in warm, humid conditions. Those conditions are also the perfect breeding environment for Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria monocytogenes. And here is the key detail that most people miss. The bacteria are not just on the surface of the sprout where washing would help. They live inside the seed itself, which means the bacteria travel with the sprout through its entire growth cycle. Washing does not eliminate this risk. The FDA states this explicitly. For someone in their late 60s or 70s, a Salmonella or E. coli infection from contaminated sprouts is not a mild inconvenience. It can mean hospitalization. In severe cases, particularly in people with underlying kidney disease or compromised immune function, it can escalate to kidney failure. The CDC has tracked multiple multi-state outbreaks tied specifically to raw sprouts, including cases involving older adults who were hospitalized following what seemed like a routine salad. Stay with me, because the second vegetable on this list is one that even nutritionists recommend, and for most people, it is genuinely excellent. But for a specific and very large segment of the senior population, it requires real caution. The pro tip here is direct. If you love the texture and flavor of sprouts, cook them. Stir-fry them at high heat, roast them, or add them to soups where they will reach a safe internal temperature. The nutritional profile changes slightly, but the bacterial risk is eliminated. That is a worthwhile trade-off at any age, and an essential one over 60. I want to be very precise with this one, because spinach is genuinely one of the most nutritious vegetables that exists. Vitamins A, C, and K, folate, iron, calcium. For the majority of people at any age, spinach is a dietary asset, not a problem. But there is a specific and very important exception, and it affects a far larger number of seniors than most people realize. Spinach is one of the highest oxalate foods in the human diet. A half cup of cooked spinach contains approximately 755 milligrams of oxalate. That is a significant load. And as I explained earlier, aging kidneys filter oxalate less efficiently. For someone with a history of calcium oxalate kidney stones, or with existing chronic kidney disease, or with reduced gut function following surgery, that oxalate does not simply pass through the body the way it would in a 30-year-old with healthy kidneys. Research published in peer-reviewed nephrology journals has found that spinach accounted for more than 40% of total oxalate intake in large study cohorts. One study found that consuming an amount equivalent to a spinach salad produced a significant increase in excretion of nanocrystals that can incite kidney damage. These were not people with kidney disease. These were people eating what they believed was a healthy meal. And here is where it gets important for the senior audience. The trend toward spinach-heavy green smoothies, 4, 5, 6 handfuls of spinach blended with fruit, delivers an oxalate load that aging kidneys may struggle to process. This is not a theoretical concern. Nephrologists have documented cases of acute oxalate nephropathy in people who adopted aggressive juicing and smoothie protocols without understanding the oxalate implications. This does not mean you need to eliminate spinach from your diet. It means, if you have any history of kidney stones, chronic kidney disease, gut surgeries, or inflammatory bowel disease, have a direct conversation about oxalate with your doctor, and in the meantime, moderate your spinach intake dramatically. The pro tip here is a simple and brilliant swap. Kale and bok choy deliver a remarkably similar nutritional profile to spinach: vitamins, minerals, fiber, anti-inflammatory compounds, but contain only 2 milligrams of oxalate per cup. That is not a typo. Kale, 2 milligrams. Spinach, 755 milligrams per half cup cooked. For seniors managing kidney health, that swap is genuinely significant. And if you do eat spinach, eat it with a calcium-rich food, milk, yogurt, cheese, because dietary calcium binds to oxalate in the gut before it can reach the kidneys. This dramatically reduces the amount of oxalate that gets absorbed into your system. This one is the most nuanced on the list because potassium from vegetables is genuinely protective for most people. It helps regulate blood pressure. It supports heart rhythm. The DASH diet, which is one of the most evidence-based dietary approaches for cardiovascular health, deliberately emphasizes potassium-rich foods. But there is an important exception that affects a very significant portion of the senior population, and it is one that is dangerously under-discussed. Approximately 38% of adults over 65 in the United States have chronic kidney disease, many of them undiagnosed. And for anyone with chronic kidney disease, or for anyone taking ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or potassium-sparing diuretics, 3 of the most commonly prescribed medication classes for blood pressure in seniors, potassium does not process normally. When kidneys cannot efficiently filter potassium, blood levels rise. The condition is called hyperkalemia, high blood potassium, and its effects on the heart are serious. Hyperkalemia can cause dangerous irregular heart rhythms, At severe levels, it can cause the heart to stop. The vegetables with the highest potassium loads include potatoes, tomatoes, avocado, beet greens, cooked beans, and many leafy greens. For the average healthy senior, these are excellent foods. But for someone with stage 3 or higher chronic kidney disease on ACE inhibitors, quietly eating a large portion of baked potato and tomato sauce every day, potassium accumulation is a genuine cardiac risk. And here is the part nobody talks about. Many people in this situation have no symptoms until the potassium level is dangerously high. Mild hyperkalemia can feel like nothing at all. It is invisible. That is what makes it dangerous. What should you do? If you are on blood pressure medications, particularly ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or potassium-sparing diuretics, ask your doctor directly whether you need to monitor your potassium intake from food. That is a specific and reasonable clinical question, and you deserve a specific answer. And if you do need to reduce potassium from vegetables, the pro tip is a cooking technique called leaching. Peel and slice high-potassium vegetables, boil them in a large amount of water, and discard the cooking water. This process draws potassium out of the vegetable and into the water. It does not eliminate potassium entirely, but studies have shown it can reduce potassium content by up to 50%, making moderate portions of these foods more manageable for seniors with kidney concerns. If you only remember one thing from this section, make it this: potassium is not the enemy. But for a large and underdiagnosed segment of the senior population, unmonitored potassium accumulation from otherwise healthy vegetables is a real and under-recognized cardiac risk. Now, let us talk about the 3 vegetables that seniors should be eating far more of. The ones that the most rigorous research consistently identifies as genuinely protective for the aging body, specifically for cardiovascular health, for cognitive resilience, and for anti-inflammatory balance. These are not trends. These are foods with decades of data behind them. Broccoli belongs at the top of this list because no other common vegetable delivers quite the same combination of protective compounds for the aging body. The star of the broccoli nutritional profile is a compound called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is a powerful anti-inflammatory compound, one of the most studied in food science. Research published across multiple peer-reviewed journals has linked dietary sulforaphane intake to reduced markers of chronic inflammation, protective effects on cardiovascular tissue, and, this is the part I want you to hear clearly, potential protective effects against several cancers, including colon and prostate cancer. But the cognitive health story around broccoli is what I find most compelling for a senior audience. Anti-inflammatory dietary patterns are consistently associated in research with slower rates of cognitive decline. The MIND diet, which stands for Mediterranean-Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay, specifically emphasizes cruciferous vegetables like broccoli as a cornerstone. A 2024 Harvard Medical School study following participants over 20 weeks found that those on Mediterranean-style diets rich in anti-inflammatory plant foods showed measurable improvements in memory and mental clarity. Broccoli is also rich in vitamin K and calcium, both critical for bone density maintenance, which becomes increasingly important after 60 when osteoporosis risk rises. It provides vitamin C, which enhances iron absorption from other foods, and folate, which supports cardiovascular health through homocysteine regulation. The pro tip here is specific and supported by actual food science. When you cut broccoli, an enzyme called myrosinase activates and begins producing sulforaphane. If you cook the broccoli immediately, the heat deactivates the enzyme before it can do its work. But if you cut the broccoli and let it rest for 40 minutes before cooking, the myrosinase has time to produce significantly more sulforaphane, and that compound is heat-stable, meaning it survives the cooking process. 40 minutes of resting time, that is the pro tip. Most people have never heard it. Add a sprinkle of mustard seed to your cooked broccoli and you amplify the sulforaphane effect further. Mustard seed contains its own myrosinase enzyme that restores the reaction even in cooked broccoli. For seniors looking to optimize longevity nutrition on a practical level, steamed or lightly roasted broccoli 3 to 4 times a week is one of the highest value dietary habits you can build. Let me introduce a vegetable that does something that no pharmaceutical blood pressure medication perfectly replicates. and it does it through a completely natural mechanism that most seniors have never been told about. Beets are one of the richest dietary sources of inorganic nitrates in the food supply. When you eat beets, bacteria in your saliva convert those nitrates into nitrites. Your body then converts those nitrites into nitric oxide, a molecule that signals the smooth muscle cells in your arterial walls to relax. Think of that in terms of a garden hose again. Nitric oxide is like releasing the pressure clamp on the hose. The walls relax. Blood flows more freely. Resting blood pressure decreases. Research has consistently shown that regular beet or beetroot juice consumption is associated with meaningful reductions in systolic blood pressure, the top number, in adults with elevated readings. For seniors managing hypertension, this is a genuinely significant dietary tool. But here is what I find most remarkable about beets for seniors specifically. The nitrate to nitric oxide pathway does not just affect blood vessels in the body, it affects the brain. Research published in neurological journals has found that regular beetroot juice consumption is associated with improved cerebral blood flow, specifically to the frontal lobe, the part of the brain most associated with executive function, decision-making, and working memory. And here is the part that deserves a moment of reflection. Reduced blood flow to the frontal lobe is one of the key biological markers associated with age-related cognitive decline. So a food that naturally and measurably improves blood flow to that exact region is a food worth paying serious attention to. Beets are also rich in folate, potassium for those without kidney concerns, vitamin C, and powerful antioxidant pigments called betalains, which have their own anti-inflammatory properties. The pro tip: if you want the maximum vascular and brain blood flow benefit, drink 8 ounces of pure beetroot juice 2 to 3 hours before physical activity. Research on older adults has specifically found that this timing optimizes the nitric oxide window. Also, and this is important, do not use antibacterial mouthwash on days you are trying to get the benefit from beets. The nitrate to nitrite conversion in your saliva depends on specific oral bacteria. Antibacterial mouthwash kills those bacteria and blocks the entire conversion pathway. The beet effect disappears. That is not intuitive, but the research is consistent. Roasted beets in salads, blended into smoothies, or consumed as pure juice are all effective delivery methods. The final vegetable on the must-eat list, the one I mentioned in the hook that most seniors are not eating nearly enough of, is the sweet potato. And the reason it is on this list is not one thing. It is 4 things simultaneously. Let me go through them. First, blood sugar regulation. Sweet potatoes have a lower glycemic index than regular white potatoes, meaning they release sugar into the bloodstream more slowly. For seniors managing blood sugar levels, diabetes, or prediabetes, which affects tens of millions of Americans over 65, this is a meaningful distinction. The high fiber content of sweet potatoes further slows glucose absorption, supporting more stable blood sugar after meals. Second, eye health. Sweet potatoes are extraordinarily rich in beta-carotene, the same compound that makes carrots orange, which your body converts into vitamin A. Vitamin A is essential for maintaining the photoreceptor cells in the retina. Age-related macular degeneration, the leading cause of vision loss in adults over 60 in the United States, is partly associated with oxidative stress and inadequate antioxidant protection in the macula. The carotenoids in sweet potatoes, including beta-carotene and the related compound zeaxanthin, provide direct antioxidant protection to the macular tissue. Third, anti-inflammatory protection. The antioxidant pigments in sweet potatoes, anthocyanins in purple sweet potatoes, polyphenols across varieties, have been shown to reduce circulating inflammatory markers. Remember that chronic low-grade inflammation is the underlying mechanism behind most age-related diseases: cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, arthritis, type 2 diabetes. A food that measurably reduces inflammatory burden is a food that works for your entire body simultaneously. Fourth, and this one connects directly to the brain health story from the broccoli section. Sweet potatoes are rich in choline, a nutrient that supports the production of acetylcholine, the primary neurotransmitter involved in memory formation and cognitive function. Most seniors are chronically underconsuming choline, and the deficit is associated with accelerated cognitive decline. The pro tip for sweet potatoes is a simple and important one. Beta-carotene is fat-soluble, meaning your body can only absorb it properly when there is fat present in the same meal. Eating a plain baked sweet potato with no fat delivers far less beta-carotene to your bloodstream than the same sweet potato eaten with a drizzle of olive oil, a small amount of butter, or alongside a food containing healthy fat like avocado. This is not a minor effect. Studies have shown that fat co-consumption can increase carotenoid absorption by several 100%. Roasted, mashed, baked, or cubed into soups and stews. Sweet potato is one of the most versatile and nutritionally dense foods available at any grocery store in America, at a price point that makes it accessible for seniors on any budget. Let me give you a simple weekly framework that takes everything we discussed and makes it practical. 3 times a week, build a meal around broccoli. Steam it, roast it, add it to stir-fries or soups. Remember the 40-minute rest before cooking, and add a pinch of mustard seed when it is done. That single habit delivers sulforaphane, vitamin K, calcium, folate, and anti-inflammatory protection in one inexpensive vegetable. Once or twice a week, include beets, roasted beets in a salad, pure beetroot juice in the morning. If you are managing blood pressure, make this a consistent habit. If you are taking antibacterial mouthwash, consider whether it is doing more harm than good to your dietary nitrate metabolism. 3 or 4 times a week, substitute sweet potato where you would otherwise reach for white potato. With a drizzle of olive oil, roast it at 400 degrees until caramelized. The glycemic benefit, the eye protection, the anti-inflammatory compounds, and the choline for your brain make this one of the highest value swaps in senior nutrition. And on the avoidance side, if you are a sprout lover, cook them. If you are juicing large quantities of spinach daily and you have any history of kidney stones, pause and have a conversation with your doctor about oxalate. If you are on blood pressure medications, particularly ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or potassium-sparing diuretics, ask specifically about potassium monitoring from food sources. None of these are dramatic changes. They are small, informed calibrations. And for a body that is managing aging, managing medications, and managing chronic conditions, small informed calibrations compound into meaningful protective outcomes over months and years. Let me close with this. The advice to eat more vegetables is not wrong. It is incomplete. Because what protects a 35-year-old body and what protects a 70-year-old body are not always identical. And the gap between those two realities is exactly where a lot of well-meaning health advice quietly fails the people who need it most. You deserve information that is calibrated to where you actually are. Not generic advice, not fear, not oversimplification. Real, evidence-based, specific guidance that respects both the biology of aging and the intelligence of the person on the other side of the screen. That is what this channel is for. If you found this video valuable, if something here surprised you, or confirmed something you suspected, or gave you a question to bring to your next doctor's appointment, I would love to know about it in the comments below. Which of these 6 vegetables were you already eating? Which ones are you going to add or rethink? Share this video with someone in your life who is over 60, because there is a good chance they are making vegetable choices every day without this context, and that context, the difference between a vegetable that helps you and a vegetable that quietly works against an aging kidney, or interacts with your medication, or delivers the wrong oxalate load. That context is worth knowing. Subscribe for a new video every week. Take care of yourself. And remember, the goal is not just to live longer, it is to live better, with more energy, more clarity, and more of everything that makes life worth living. You have earned that. Let your food help you get there.